All right, welcome to Chapter 5, The House of Rest, led by Virginia. Go ahead, Virginia.
Yeah, I was surprised that I got this chapter without looking at it and got Chapter 5 because I really like how it goes into the sleep state and the angel of surprise. And I just really, really like this chapter. So I'm glad that I'm actually doing this one. And so is everybody, nobody's got any questions, so I'll just dive right into it. Page 48, which I call the character of God, is what was being discussed in this paragraph, which begins in its respect to persons, is disrespect of persons. It comes nearer the character of God than any other attribute of earth. The saint and sinner, the prodigal and thrifty, the profligate and the prudent receive from sleep an equal salutation. And then it begins that she has no power to judge. It continues, it's a longer paragraph. I was actually quite surprised by that. I somehow don't remember reading that the first time of this being so being that, like, showing the character of God, which it does. But I'd just like to know how you all feel about that. So I can see it now that it's mentioned to me. I can see that there is a lot of God's characteristics, especially that there is no judgment and that we all can equally receive this type of rest and experience in our spirit bodies. But it also, that it was, Afra was always referring to sleep state as she and in the feminine. And as well, do you feel that the sleep state only reflects God's feminine character, or do you see any of God's masculine character there as well? Alicia?
Well, you actually said that while you were talking then, that there's an equality in the sleep state. There's no facade. It's like everything's transparent. And again, you mentioned that there's justice there. There isn't any judgment. There's justice. Everything's fair. I imagine that on earth things may seem unfair, but in the sleep state it feels as if it's all fair there, which feels like a part of God's character to me. For me, why this is she, and by the way, I also didn't really pick up on this sleep state part of this chapter the first few times I've read it, but I felt because the sleep state is so nurturing, and it's
Can
like
I differentiate that this is about sleep, not sleep state?
Or about sleep. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, right, because Virginia, this is about falling asleep. This is about sleep itself.
Yeah.
What sleep does. And then you have a sleep state experience while you're sleeping. But I want to differentiate, or am I missing something?
Because being that there's a difference between a sleep state experience
And being able to sleep.
But do we ever really sleep while we're on Earth? I thought that we always had
Exactly
sleep state experience.
But sleep allows for the rest, the rejuvenation. It allows for those who are weary and sad and suppressed be able to have some release while they're asleep, because your sleep state experience is good. So I'm thinking it's about the ability to sleep itself and how beautiful that gift is, that we can sleep and all the good that does.
Okay.
That's where I went with it. And then the sleep state is a whole other confronting conversation.
So may I continue?
Go ahead, Alicia.
So for me, the she feels appropriate here because it's a feeling of nurturing, and as Mila just said, it's a rejuvenation. I'm just letting go. I'm in stillness. There's a feeling of reception, of I can just let go of everything. And as far as the character, is it only feminine? I had a feeling that the laws are, I don't know, the laws and the use of our will, therefore, feels more masculine in quality to me. And so I felt like those laws are enacting during this period of time too, that we're sleeping. It's automatically being enacted. So it felt like there is, that character is there, but mostly it feels the nurturing feminine to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Alicia. Jill?
Yeah, I too have read this chapter a number of times, and I felt like I read it for the first time this time as well. It's crazy. Anyways, I felt the female side, or the feminine side, came from the very nature of the nurturing part of it. Like it was the beautiful descriptions of him being taken care of, him being released. You know, at one point in time it said yield, yield. Like it was a very gentle, very moving experience for him. And I felt that that was very feminine, like that was the very feminine quality. And that's why they kept on calling it she and her. Yeah, and now I can't remember what else I was going to say, so I'll leave it.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Jill. So because I was thinking that it was discussing sleep and sleep state, not just the sleep that you get when you go into the spirit world, that actual just sleep, because that's what Afrar has just experienced. I thought it was also talking about our experience of that on Earth, but it's not the same. It's definitely not the same type of sleep that we get here. From what I understanding, I thought we don't ever completely just sleep without anything happening. There's either our spirit body is having experiences or our physical body is, right? Except
Those
for
are good questions. But I mean, the chapter is talking.
Understanding. So please, jump in and let me end. If you have
I'll let other people. Alicia?
Well, I was just going to add that I felt that I agree that at nighttime, when we're sleeping, whatever it is, we're sleeping, that we're still active. But I imagine that perhaps if we have a lot to process, we may actually spend some of the sleep time, although our physical body is resting, but we're not sleeping. Maybe our spirit body also needs to rest, just as Afra rested, depending on what's been going on for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Alicia. Lisa, you were going to say something? No? All right. Okay. Good. Any other comments on that chapter? Page 48.
I had some comments. The feeling I had was that we don't know what God's feminine characteristics are. And so it kind of made me sad that the conversation and your question is about God's feminine characteristics. And I'm like, I don't even know what they are. And I didn't even know to think, to investigate, to explore, because the feminine I'm feeling right now is that because I'm born a female, I was forced to reject my gender. And I don't even know where to start to connect to my gender again. So there's a lot of sadness about how much is disregarded as useless. So I kind of felt the disconnect of like the idea that God has feminine characteristics, and what are those? Like, so that was, it brought up some sadness about it, and that how little we value, or maybe how little I value, somebody nourishing you and giving you that deep, deep rest, like we don't talk about how much we value it, except that as a medical doctor, as healthcare practitioner, we get a lot of requests for better sleep. So there it is. We're not able to receive or value how much when you don't get it, when you don't get a good sleep, man, you're in a lot of trouble. So some thoughts there about God's feminine nature and how to even begin investigating or valuing it.
Yeah. Lisa?
I think I'm having a lot of spirits because each time I raise my hand, I go blank, or maybe it's my own nervousness. So my apologies. But yeah, I wanted to just mention that I know a lot of people don't get rest in the sleep state experience. They're like afraid to go to their sleep state because they're being attacked or hounded by spirits that are dark. And then how many people are just afraid in general to sleep, so their body isn't getting that rest. I just wanted to kind of confirm what you were and restate what you just mentioned, Mila.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's that feeling of in this chapter, I loved this chapter too. It just felt like this glorious allowance of surrender to nourishment and rejuvenation and turning back the pains of life and the time wearing on us and making us wrinkled and growing old, and all the elements of the environment, the mosses and the flowers and everything was just, it felt so much like a mother's lap, like laying in a mother's lap, which so many of us can't even allow ourselves to get into when we're going to sleep at nighttime, because I know for myself, I still hold so much terror that underpins a lot of things in my life. Everything, I'm not even fully rested, but when I do have those periods where I have a good release, I can just finally have a good night's sleep. I know the difference. So sorry guys, I get a bit shaky speaking in front of everybody still, but I'm still gonna do it. So I'm just letting you know I'm shaking and internally, and I'll get better at speaking in front of adults. It's just what I'm working on.
Good.
Oops.
Thank you. Michaela?
Hi, sorry, I've been really distracted. My internet isn't good, so I might be repeating something as well. Are we still on the first question? Okay, cool. So I've been working through this idea of being able to connect to God in the physical, and through the flower essence. That's really helped me to see that God is in the physical, and so I can see that sleep is an aspect of God's love to us in the physical. And in terms of it being a she, it sort of feels right to me, just because of, I sort of see the feminine, like maybe this is an injured viewpoint, but that there's the mysteriousness of the feminine, which comes at nighttime, and also that nurturing sort of embrace that sort of is related to the feminine. So to me, it seemed right that it done and we're bold.
Michaela, when you're speaking, if you could turn off your video, that'll help you to not lag. Just for that part, that would really help. There you go.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Where was I up to?
The last 30 seconds.
I was just saying how I can see how it could be referred to as a she, just in the sense of that the she is sort of the mysterious, intuitive, and that's kind of the nighttime. And how the day is sort of the bold, active, getting things done in the masculine. That was sort of how I could see that could be a good description.
Yeah. In Chinese medicine, we call that the yin. The yin is the nighttime, is the evening time, is the letting go, is the digestion and absorption. Yeah, those are the yin qualities. Are you done, Michaela?
I'm done.
Thank you. I wanted to add one more observation, which was that the feminine qualities of rest and sleep was not passive, it was very active. It was actively imbuing you with energy, imbuing you with restoration, reversing damage. It was a very active invitation for you to relax, but the act itself felt very active. Like it wasn't just as passive, nothing's going to happen, which I guess is one of my error about the feminine, which I feel is seen as weak and useless and insignificant and nothing much is going to happen. But what I saw in the sleep was how active that state was, how much got done in that state once Afra surrendered, once we surrender.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Alicia?
Well, I think maybe it's a little bit tags on to what Mila was saying now and before about we look at reception as something that's passive, but actually there's an act of opening yourself to receive, so that feminine quality feels like you're welcoming in that sleep state. And I was thinking sleep time. I was thinking that Mila, like you're nourishing and you're receptive, welcoming people in your work, even like let alone you own your character. So I can see that that's a character for us, not just as women, as men and women, but just in the world for us all to welcome that. But it's seen as weak, as you just said. It's seen as a weak position and not something that's actually got a strength to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was just encouraged to ask a question for Afra today. It's coming on this topic. Yes. We could ask now or we could ask later, but let's, Michael.
Just a quick idea. Maybe another reason why sleep is difficult for some people is they're resisting going into a receptive healing state where things can be done to them. So like still a desire to be in control and not just due to fear.
Right, the control addiction. But then the fear of if we have a non-nurturing, in fact, an aggressive mother, why on earth are you going to surrender? Like you're going to have to release that injury first so you can receive God's feminine nature in the same area. But yeah, that's a good point, actually. There's some addictions we could point out. What are the addictions that stop us from? Go ahead, Virginia.
Seeing value in it for sure. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. That's really good. And we go to the second question, page 51, the angel of surprise. Surprise is native of this life, and wherever you see her, you will find her face bright with pleasant smiles. And she is a very delightful companion to grow acquainted with. When she visits Earth, she frequently disguises herself with a veil of disappointment. I had a hard time with that word actually being there, and pays her visits in the shades of the gloaming, so that but few people have an idea that she is one of God's favorite angels. That was surprising for me to read that, angel of surprise, and have a look at how do you feel about the surprises in your life? Most of us like good surprises and what we judge to be good surprises. And how does it affect our lives when we welcome or not welcome surprises? Kayla?
This question really got me thinking too, because I'd never really considered about this idea of surprises. And I was just looking back on the last year of my life and a bit more when the most growth came into my life was certainly when I was completely surprised, but in a devastating way, unfortunately. And so it made me think about there will come a time in our progress when all the surprises will be positive things. They won't be like knocking us off our feet and making us realize what we've been avoiding. But I notice as well in myself, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, clear.
Okay, cool. I notice as well in myself, like particularly in relation to my soulmate, we might be in a good phase, but it's more so because we're in addictions, and I'm almost kind of looking forward to, but really afraid of when that surprise is going to come, which is going to knock me over and make me actually work through stuff and not be in addiction anymore, so that we can then move to the next stage of our relationship, or at least I can move to that stage in relation to God.
So I like what you're suggesting here is that in addiction, we kind of get numb, which is the purpose of addiction. You just get numbed and mute. And then a surprise is necessary to kind of shake us off of it.
That's certainly what I've found. Like my will
Yes.
hasn't been strong enough yet to kind of take the steps in that direction without being kind of
Yes.
thrown by a surprise.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about the disappointment that surprises bring? Lisa, go ahead.
It was surprising for me to see that it sounds like this. It was just different reading it, and that it surprised being a being, like the angel of surprise, rather than just events that
Right.
happen. And so referring to her in that way, and it sounds like she has to literally reduce her own brightness when she's here on earth for us to even welcome any of what she's bringing, of her gifts, is what, when I saw the word disappointment, she has to veil herself with disappointment. I wasn't really sure what that completely meant, so I'd love input on that and what you think that means.
I'm just gonna start with Lisa. She raised her hand earlier. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, to respond immediately to Virginia, I think, on earth, when we're in the throes of so much rebellion against God's laws, we need those laws to push against us and create pain. And for us, that's a disappointment. It's like smack us in the
Right.
face. So that was how I was taking that disappointment. But my question actually that I wanted to put out is, why does God love the angel of surprise so much? Like, I don't understand why that's one of God's favorite angels. And is it because, like, I started thinking about which laws are in operation that cause surprises to happen? Is it the law of desire that's at work? Is it the law of cause and effect and the law of desire? So that sometimes we get disappointing surprises, when we're really in rebellion and we need them. And God loves that because God's like, yes, I'm going to wake that child up through pain. Or, I guess these are the questions I'm putting out, because, like, why does God like love? It's one of God's favorite angels, is what it says. So that was my question that came up.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa.
Well, I'm adding it to the question to offer.
Yes.
That's a good one to ask.
I don't know which one came first. It was Alicia.
Alicia.
Yeah, I like that, what Lisa just said. Yeah, it felt to me like it's because of waking us up. Like there's more, but you have got to get through this block first. One thing came to me is, first of all, I also was, I've even until you started talking about it, I was still like, I'm not quite getting this with a veil of disappointment. But I remembered a time years ago, I was in a really happy place. I was staying with wonderful people. Everything was perfect. I was super happy all day long, but every morning I'd wake up super depressed. And I was like, what is going on here? Like all day I'm fine, and then I'm waking up depressed. And so that was a disappointment to me, but but it actually ended up leading me to realize that I had bipolar. And so that was so within a couple of days I got that understanding, and it was like, oh wow, what a surprise and what a gift as well to learn that. Why I'm not just crazy, but there's something going on. Anyway, so that sort of just played into that. I have, like you said, Virginia, I have a love of surprises, mostly when they're good, but even when they're not good, well, if they're really not good, I'm not very keen on them. But if they're just a little bit not good, it actually encourages me to be curious and like, what's going on here? There must be something for me to look at here. What's happening? So yes, it encourages that. And in fact, yesterday I was just walking along, was in another world, and suddenly somebody just surprised me. Anyway, they shouted out to me, they were above me and they surprised me. And I was, oh, so it brought up a moment of fear, but immediately after that, I was just giggling and falling over with laughter, actually. So I could feel that even in that fear, if you move through it really quickly, it can bring up all sorts of wonderful happiness too in that. So yes, it feels like when we welcome those surprises, it feels like a great opportunity to learn and grow, change, and be curious. And so I like that, oh wow. But when they're unwelcome, they feel like heavy burden, stuck in the mud, stubborn, stagnant, and I feel rebellious, basically. Yeah. So.
I like the connection you made, Alicia, that if God has given us curiosity, then God's got to give us little candies called surprises to keep the curiosity.
Yeah, and I was wondering if this is just like giving my power away, but like in a restaurant, often I've just said, as long as it's vegan, I just surprise me. I've said that for years. For years, I've always like,
I love
just what do you want to do? Surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, there are times when I go with my sister and the dish is delicious, and she's like, how do they make it? I said, please leave the gift of surprise alone. I don't want to know. I love the surprise of this is so delicious. I don't want to know how to make it. I don't want to make it. I want to be surprised.
I often don't know how I've made something. Somebody asks me for the recipe and I'm like, I don't know. I just did it.
That's even better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michaela?
I just had a bit of insight into why the disappointing, and I got a sense that it was related to, like, when we get surprised, we're getting a new truth. So it's the resistance to that truth that makes it disappointing.
Okay.
And I was just, when I was reflecting on that and like sort of just looking at examples in my life, you can see how from that moment of surprise, there's always this ripple that comes out from that point that unravels all these other truths. So I think that just makes me feel excited to think of the power of surprises. And if we can engage with the truth that it's showing rather than resist it.
You see surprises as connected to truth. The next jump into truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lisa?
Yeah, and the more that we come to love feeling all of our emotions, the more we're going to welcome all the surprises that come our way, right? We're going to just love whatever the law of attraction's bringing. We'll be like, all right, okay, there's some pain there. Let's go for it. And we'll dive right in,
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine getting to that point where you just really want to feel?
Yeah.
I can only imagine it at this point. So, thank you. Judith?
I was just thinking that the more advanced we get, I bet surprises never end. Like, no matter how we grow, God's universe is all based on surprise, because that's how we learn about God and the universe. We're going to learn something we didn't know before. So
it keeps the delight.
yeah. It just
Yeah, I
goes on
guess,
and on.
go ahead.
No, I just said it goes on and on. It just will never end.
Yeah. And as life is eternal and at some point time doesn't exist, then this is how we're going to stay in kind of this excitement for eternity. You know, to keep us entertained. Otherwise, we're bored. God's never going to have that happen to us. So God's got an infinite box of toys to keep us engaged. That's a hard job for a parent. Oof. Okay. Lisa.
But my question is, what causes those surprises to come our way? What causes the surprises to come our way? Like, what laws are in operation? Is it something like the next layer of desire in our soul that we're not even aware of yet? That we have that much faith that's stretched as our soul stretches. So the new desires that we're not even conscious of are what attract those surprises. Like for Afrar, he had so much curiosity and desire in him, and all of it started coming to him because he wanted to know. So I guess I just am curious about how God's laws are in operation with surprise and attracting them. I really want to know.
Well, the question I'm coming up to ask may give you a slight flavor, maybe, in the answer. We'll see. So, but that's a good one to ask. And decades and centuries to answer. Thank you.
Alicia?
Oh, maybe it's simplistic, but it seemed to me that you answered your own question, Lisa, didn't you? About desire and curiosity.
Oh, so I still feel some confusion. Like, I'm not quite sure if that's what I was throwing out is the truth, or maybe it's the unconscious desires in us that we're not yet aware of that then cause the element of surprise to come to us. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think there's a number of things happening. Maybe it's because our soul has a new state that it's going to attract certain new things outwardly so that we bring a greater consciousness of where we're actually at.
But what about, there's two people in this conversation. There's you and your soul, and then there is the parent who's giving us the surprises. So what of God's nature is the one producing surprises? Because God's the parent that's going to keep us engaged and entertained forever. So
I feel like God's laws are engaged here, because it could be the law of attraction, the law of desire.
Yeah.
I just depends on our own soul condition and what the next step to our learning God deems.
Yeah, I feel like
appropriate, so it could come in through any of the laws.
The thing is, it's okay to not know the answer. It's okay. Stay with the curiosity. Stay with the question. It could take centuries to get the answer. But if that's the thing that's burning in your soul, you're going to have fun figuring it out. So,
I was thinking about a recent trip I took because I had some business to attend to. So I made it into just a fun play trip to Flagstaff overnight. And the people I bumped into and the walks I took and it was so much amazing beauty and friendship and connection, and all of it were elements of surprise. But I guess part of it is, those were some desires in me that helped attract those events around me and those places. Because I just went on the journey thinking, well, I'm going to make it a play, an overnight play thing. I did it out of desire and I had to get something done, but I'm going to do play too. And it was pretty amazing when I just went at it with, I'm going to just take time to play. All these surprises could come to me. Beautiful gifts came my way that probably reflected maybe more clearly to me what was really in my soul that I was desiring. Like, I was desiring to make some connections, and I was desiring a forest to hike in, and it was just amazing. So I guess I'm thinking of that example, and maybe that helps to see something concrete to help us understand this more. But yes, it's probably going to be a lifelong understanding it more and more in depth.
Yeah. We all have some interest in some of God's laws that we want to dedicate our lives to understand. Like, I think Jesus mentioned once that there's spirits, the people that are invested in understanding law of attraction, and they've spent centuries on it, and they're still digging and still getting more and more understanding about it. So that gave me this feeling that these laws are going to take a long time to figure out. The deeper you go, the more there is to know, the more surprises waiting for them about that one thing they're investigating. So it'll be fun. And it's okay to not know. There's a lot to know.
Mhm.
But stay with the question. Yeah.
Michael?
Jesus has said that travel is good for getting us out of our comfort zone,
Yeah.
and recognizing our addictions. And then travel is full of surprises. So I can see the link there.
Which will be that because you're out of your comfort zone, you're open to receiving it.
Yeah, things are all being open to things that are different from what I'm accustomed to, and being curious about why it's happening.
Yeah.
It just, you see things fresher in a new way. Travel is an aid to seeing things freshly, maybe with new eyes, and it just creates more surprises.
You know what would be a
opportunity.
fun this is a fun experiment. Now I'm thinking, what a fun experiment. We could dedicate a day in the coming week to say, I'm going to do the same old thing I do every time, but I want surprises this time. In the same old routine. Surprise me, please make it pleasant. But let's have surprises today, and see if maybe you get nudged to being more alert or something. But that'd be a fun way to figure that out. It's like if we have to do something like travel just to open ourselves to even receiving, it's like that's a sad thing. It's like, let's try to shake that up.
Yeah.
Just one day this coming week, just go, today will be my day of surprises. Let's see what happens today in my same old routine.
One part of that, though, too, is that when we drop our expectations and open up.
Yeah.
So if you're going somewhere new, you might not really have expectations of what exactly it's going to be, but you're open to that. You just want to have fun or enjoy, like Lisa did. But I feel that when you drop those expectations, if we could do that in our everyday life, we'd be more open to surprises.
That's a good one. Drop expectations. Yeah, thank you.
Michaela?
I like what you just said then, Miller, about trying to be surprised in your everyday life. And it always sort of intrigues me that we could do all this work in the peace and comfort of our own space if only we chose to want to know. And so I feel that to be surprised in your day-to-day life is to pray for truth and to really mean it, so that you're getting it without having to be physically shocked or wounded or, major shifts coming into your life in order to be able to receive the truth and have a surprise. Does that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I picked the 26th and I'm already feeling terror of it being disappointment. It's like, oh God, I've asked for surprises. So I'm already processing my terror of like, what kind of surprise? I've had too many surprises lately. I'm still processing. Like I'm in shock of those surprises. So, but I've picked the 26th. So let's see what happens.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Michaela. Okay, we moving on to the next. So we have more ideas to discuss.
Well, the next one is deep sleep, and it was page 52. Do all persons sleep on entering this life? Not necessarily. Sleep divides the two states of the soul's developments as night divides 2 days. Some persons, when they reach this life, have not attained to such standard as to dispense with it, and their condition remains much as it was before until they are enabled to reach one of the many homes similar to this, where they pass the boundary line and then, being beyond the reach of weariness, never require to sleep again. Others, again, pass the spiritual standard before leaving the earth, and so make but a temporary stay here. So how do you feel about this spiritual standard? What do you think that actually means? What is meant by the spiritual standard that must be acquired to actually experience this deep sleep state when we move on to the spirit world? Anyone have any input on that? Judith?
I just think it's as simple as feeling your emotions. You know, Afar did well in the spirit world because he apparently processed a lot of grief and things. And so most of us haven't. So I'm sure that we're going to need to sleep once we get to the spirit world, because we're going to become emotionally drained because we're going to be having a lot of things happen to us. So I think it's as simple as that, just processing all your emotions. And I guess the people that don't need the sleep. Maybe they've been through all that they need to go through.
Oh, so you think that if you've felt all your emotions and experienced them, that you don't need the sleep when you get to the spirit world?
Right, like you don't have any problems, you're not doing things that are unethical, you're not living in error, you're feeling all your feelings. Like Afar did, so then he just doesn't need to recuperate anymore. I guess it's a level of freedom, I would think.
I'm just thinking that
sense,
second sphere, you still have areas to work through, but it's a different kind, maybe. Yeah, but there's still areas to process and emotions to release, but there's something between. I was just guessing, like, is that second sphere? Once you get to second sphere, you don't need sleep anymore. Is that what it means? I was also having similar questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that too. Yeah, I mean, you're still going to process up in the time you're at one with God, but.
And then after that, you're always emotional, but then there's nothing unpleasant.
Yeah, nothing that you're denying, basically.
Oh, so kind of understood it differently as to being in that standard and getting to a place emotionally where you do get the sleep because he received so much from it that it actually helped him. It sounded like it helped him to progress.
Because it says in the paragraph that they have to be unable to reach one of the homes so that they can get sleep. I think so, right? Like, is that what the paragraph said? That some people, after they pass, have their conditions the same, so they have to be unable to reach one of these homes and then never require sleep again. So does that mean that you still sleep in the hills because you gotta recuperate? Or does it mean that you only get that nice, refreshing sleep once you've finished off paying off a certain penalty?
That's how I but I'm I'm not sure. Thank you, Judith. Okay.
That just brought up a whole bunch of different ideas, but I sort of got the sense that the sleep is a physical gift of God. And so once you get to a point in your progression where you're not so physical based, that you're not requiring the sleep anymore, because like Judith said, I think the weariness and the need for sleep comes from the resistance and the stuck emotions that are dragging down the physical body. So once you get to a point where you're in a better flow, you're not requiring the same sleep. But I also was thinking that perhaps when you die, if you stay earthbound, maybe you choose to sleep, but it's when you actually choose to engage with your spirit life and your spirit body that you'll go to the place for the deep sleep where you can then be rejuvenated. But in terms of like people missing that deep sleep, I think they're only missing it because they don't need it. Like they're already being rejuvenated and they've already had the grays taken out of their hair and that sort of thing. Like it's a good thing to miss the deep sleep because you've already had that experience, I guess.
Makes me sad thinking about that one last sleep I'm going to have. Just like I just cried about it. We were reading going, oh, he had his final deep sleep. Like I cried. It makes me really sad that someday I'm going to have my last sleep. Yeah.
But someday you'll never be tired anymore, which will be nice too.
But it's like once you realize that someday you will never have it, I started to value what a gift it is that I had it. What a gift it is to all of us. Yeah. Thank you.
Alicia?
I think that deep sleep can be, or the lack of it can be two things. It can be that, for example, if I don't sleep so well, which was my last night, if I don't sleep so well, I'm often more, I'm more vulnerable and I'm more likely to wake up to something often. Like I'm more likely to be humble to my emotions, as well as sometimes I'm passionate about something and I don't need as much sleep. So it feels like it could be both of those things. So if in the hells we're not sleeping, maybe that helps us wake up to whatever we need to move through. So that was one point I wanted to make. And now I'm having a blank, hang on. Yes, but this is probably because it's also my theme over the last week or so, a couple of weeks, is I feel like one of the standards is to become more self-responsible for everything, for all of our emotions, for learning to recognize how we've been out of harmony with God's laws and how we are being in harmony. So that for me is really an important standard for us to be aware of, and obviously humility as well. And as later on it's spoken of, basically our journey here is to love one another. And for sure, I hardly even love myself, let alone everybody else, much as I would like to aspire to that, but I don't. So I think it encourages, it's an encouragement of self-responsibility is a big thing for me, at least here. Compassionately. Also, I wanted to say that when I started reading the chapter, I'd even said to somebody else, I read it out loud because I can't stay focused often when I just read. So I started doing that, I get distracted. I started doing that, I got sleepy. And I could not get through the chapter. And only today, I started again. I felt sleepy. I thought, okay, I'm giving up. I'm going to sleep. I don't have any appointments. I'm going to go to sleep. And then I was just fully energized and zip through it, zip through the questions, zip through everything. So I could see that when I'm resisting allowing myself to sleep, I actually become more tired and more distracted. Whereas if I allow myself to be received and nourished by the sleep, even if it's out of the ordinary, as in time-wise, then I'm replenished.
Okay, good, yeah, good points. Thank you. There's a lot to figure out there. That sleep isn't just something to be got rid of, like, oh, it's just something you have to do just because. But sleep is actually a gift of God. It's actually, it does make you start to appreciate it a bit more. When I have patients who start coming to see me because they're having sleep problems, it's always one issue, which is that there's a fear coming up. And once we name the fear, they start going to sleep. They don't need any medicine. So when people start having trouble sleeping, it's because they don't want to sink into that level of awareness. They're trying to get away from it. So you keep trying to make yourself wake up. And it's always because some kind of fear is coming up about something, whatever it is. And so during the session, I just go into, let's name the fear. That's all. And just like that. Now that they know what the fear is, there's a feeling of, oh, I can figure that out. And then you're sleeping again. So just in case you guys have insomnia at some point. Generally, that's what it's about. Thank you. Other comments?
Ready to move on to the last one? Or
Yeah.
Page 53, Law of Love. The law of love by which alone we are governed is a very flexible one, he answered, and adapts itself to every individual requirement. The system of administration being with a view to secure the greatest results in every direction. So I'm not going to read the whole paragraph. What feelings come up for you? It came up for you in this paragraph, and you feel that this attention to detail in supporting you in your learning. Do you feel this in your life on earth? And if yes, does it change your awareness or change your perception of surprises?
What's it feel like that there's an individual treatment plan just for you? I want to go read it. I'm like, what's in there? What's your plan? What's your control? Go ahead, Alicia.
It reminded me of how herbs or natural medicines, for example, when we use those, that if I take the plant or Michaela takes the plant or Lisa takes the plant, it's going to act differently according to our individual souls. And it reminded me of that in God. God is, everything is so specific. I think that it's distorted in most of us because we have this dichotomy of what earth rules and treatments are and what God's laws that are nurturingly encouraging to us are. So I feel like one part of this law of love is going to put me down, or it's going to reject me, or it's going to lie to me, or it's going to manipulate me or attack me or whatever. So I haven't got that God's laws, every little tiny thing that I attract that comes into my life is nurturing me, is nourishing me.
And in order to work through that, in order to kind of acknowledge that intellectually I can accept God's laws are meant to be very, very nurturing. And it's interesting that this is coming up on the day I'm exploring why I'm rejecting my gender. And here's this conversation about these beautiful qualities God has. So what is it we have to work through so that we could see and feel God's laws as safe and secure and nurturing? Why don't we already feel that way about God's maternal nature?
Well, for me, I feel like because of our experience with our own upbringing, it changed. It was one thing one time and one thing another time. So it wasn't
inconsistent.
Thank you. That's it. Inconsistent. It was inconsistent. And so
moody moms.
Yeah.
I'm one. So
yeah.
Okay. So to switch to release the emotion of maternal nurturing was inconsistent, to release that so that you can trust the consistency of God's nurturing nature, right? That's what you have to release. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Alicia. Michaela?
I found this statement, like, first when I read it, I felt really excited about it. And yeah, it's a great thing. But then I kind of wanted to go a bit deeper because I'm like, well, I don't really believe that. And then I could see that there's this sense of just misunderstanding and confusion about the fact that if God is so present in everybody's life, then why don't people know about it? And why are we not able to access it? And why are we in such a mess? So that's what it triggered in me.
Yeah, why aren't we aware of, because God is present, but we are pretending that it's not happening. It's like there was one time I saw a comic. It was a picture of two fish in the sea, and one fish said to the other, "What's this ocean everyone keep talking about?" And you're like, huh, okay, I get that. I can get that analogy. Like, you're in it. So it sounds just as, amusing. But yeah, that is the question. Like, why don't I want to be aware that God is present? I can feel in myself this tantrum of, well, that's because you weren't there for me then. That's the hurt that's coming up for me right away, a flash of it. So that's going to be the hurt I have to work through.
Yeah, I see in my experience, it's the hurt of not being cared for, that there was no care.
There was no care. Oh, I wonder if there's any human beings on this planet right now that doesn't have to work with that.
But doesn't that make you mad? It's like, why do we have to work with that? Like, when it's right there, it's right there.
Well, but you have to release the feeling that you experienced that there was no care. Because I was thinking earlier, I had a patient today who was beginning to feel nobody cared for me. So good for her. And I was thinking the contrast of the care that we are used to, which is the kind that comes from God. And no parent can ever match that. Like, we are going to fail. Physical parents are totally going to fail because the soul is aware of this whole other level of care that is at God's standard. And that's the only place we're going to get it, when we are wanting to receive the care, because we are receiving the care, we're just not wanting to be aware of it or even let it in. That's where I went earlier today. So the pot a little bit. Should we go? Do you have more comment, Michaela?
Well, I liked what you just said then, because I noticed that yesterday. Like, I was able to connect to that feeling of no care and how much that hurt. And then I wanted to distract myself from it. And so I called Brandon. And as soon as I started speaking to him, I could feel there's no way he can respond to this. He was never supposed to respond to this, So I got off the phone disappointed, but then I'm like, I'm only disappointed because I have an expectation that he should fix me right now, which is never actually going to work.
No. What a pleasant surprise you had there, called disappointment.
Well, it was definitely disappointing, but yes, I could see the truth in it.
I like how that worked. Thank you. Lisa?
Oh gosh, I'm really relating to what you both were just talking about, because I've been starting to connect to some emotions in myself of, I can't even feel God there. I'm like, I feel completely abandoned and completely dropped because I was bad. And so I'm just grieving, trying to let myself connect to those emotions with God. And those are, I know what Jesus is saying now, and that those are the hardest emotions to feel, is our pain with God. So when you say that we're in this ocean, Mila, I'm just like, yeah, but when you're in that pain, you're not aware of any of that.
You have to process the pain.
You have to process it. And so it's this weird thing of like reaching up to God, like, and then feeling this immediate sense of complete abandonment and emptiness, like God's not there. And I just have to try to let myself sink into and grieve, like, I'm not being cared for at all.
Absolutely.
I don't feel you there at all. Why am I even bothering to talk to you? I'm bad. I know I'm bad. So that's why you've left, and I'm going to die. I'm just all alone. I'm going to die, or I'm going to go to hell and I'm all alone. Those kind of feelings is what
absolutely.
I'm connecting to recently.
And in the depth of that pain, just put one little finger up and go, can you show me the truth, please? Can I get some feelings from you, please? That's
what I've
tiny
been
little
doing.
window open.
and then it like you get this immediate sense like, oh my
Yeah.
God, somebody just responded, and then you're like, "Ah!" and then the
Yeah.
pain's more intensified and it's coming out more strongly, and you're like, I can't stay
Exactly.
in this that long. It's too hard. Anyway,
Yeah. Good.
one other thing I just wanted to mention is, this beautiful idea that the laws of love are flexible and are specifically detail fine-tuned to nurture and support us in all ways, even the hard law of attraction events. Well, we could just start creating some experiments. Like if we review our day at the end of the day, what happened? What was going on there? And how was that God loving me? Like
What a
if we
beautiful
started
question.
put, in a
Mhm.
journal, like let's experiment and see it, because a lot of us don't even want to develop that faith because it means we're going to have to go through our terrors. We don't even want to go there. But if we started doing those experiments and writing them down, it would build that faith.
So what I like to ask when I'm in a certain stuck situation is to ask God, how are you loving me right now? Or God, how are you loving this person right now? Especially if it's a patient, because then you can go along with the treatment plan that's already established. If God is loving somebody by paying, and you get an answer and you can see the emotion that's being activated in that person, then you can kind of go along and help that. So you can actually, like you said, Lisa, you could probably write down some events you had during the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then go, God, how were you loving me in this situation? And how were you loving me in the next situation? And then see what answers you get. That's a beautiful dialogue to have. I usually ask in the middle of the experience, how are you loving me right now? Especially if I'm stuck and numb and just can't move, that I'm going, God, how are you loving me right now? And God will point to an emotion that I'm struggling with, and then I can choose to go with the emotion. But to make a list at the end of the day and to build your faith that way, that's awesome. Yeah.
And then the disappointments become beautiful, welcomed surprises when we can feel the love in that, the care in that,
Yeah.
in that painful event that was disappointing that we attracted.
Disappointments are helping us to, how much disappointment do we have as infants? Like daily. So there's quite a list of things to let ourselves to kind of, now to let ourselves feel. Because if, let's say, you're waiting for your dad to come home from work all day long, dad comes home grumpy, how disappointed are you? You're devastated. And then are you allowed to cry about it? No. So now that emotion is going to have a reason to flow. So it's okay to not judge that you're feeling disappointed and that you're not seeing the beauty of God's gift, and don't judge yourself for that. Yeah. Thank you. Other comments? There's some silent ones today. Comments? Michael?
I feel this is encouraging me to be sensitive. This talk about curiosity and some of the things that Michaela has said, it could help me see everything coming to me with fresh eyes, being willing to be surprised, and that there's a reason for it. And this is really, the law of attraction is working constantly, but I can't see it. So I realize I have my eyes closed and I didn't know how to open them. And before I've read through this chapter and didn't get any of this out of it, but it's really a little primer in how to begin to open our eyes to the presence and love of God that's all around us.
Yeah. If you're choosing to see the world in order to see the love in it, then you're more willing to see it because you're looking for the surprises of God's laws in perfect order. It does give you hope and faith that, I just saw the news about the Texas shooting, and I'm gonna have to process those emotions after. And so we do need to have some kind of a framework to even get us to even want to look and say, you know what, God's laws are here. God is helping and caring for everyone. There's good here. It helps to have that positive framework to make you even want to look. Yeah. Good one. Virginia, any comment before we go to Michaela?
No, thank you everybody for your input. It just,
Michaela, go ahead. Sorry, Virginia, but Michaela.
I just wanted to say, like what you just said then is totally it. Like, if you don't have any sense of belief that God is good, you're not going to even be able to see the goodness. So it's really about getting to that turning point where you start to recognize that it's good and it's present. And once you start seeing, you can't stop seeing. And I feel like I'm starting to step into that place of seeing, and I'm so looking forward to when I can see it everywhere, because I really want to believe in it. I really want to believe in the presence of God, and that we're actually supported.
We gotta hang on to that with everything we got. A couple of sesame seeds right there. Good ones. Thank you. Alicia?
I think that's where the inconsistency comes in, because I'm just remembering experiences of with tour groups and always pointing out all the wonderful things, even if it was pouring with rain all day. And then there would be somebody, or my mother on occasion, who would just like, oh, you're just too positive. You're looking for all the good, but there's loads of bad here. So I think that we're in that dichotomy of the world that's wanting to pull down all the time.
Yeah. Well, if it helps them to get into some grief, hey, go on. Please. It's okay. Don't live in it. Let it be a trigger for the grief. So that then you can release it, and then there's less law of attraction needed to keep poking at the same emotion. Yeah, thank you. And Alicia, it was unfortunate that you had to become your mom's cheerleader. She was denial in her depression, and then you had to be the one that upped her all the time. Right?
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
That was exhausting. Thank you. Other comments before we go to the questions? I have 2 questions to ask Afra. Very good questions, Virginia. Very deep and thoughtful. Good work. Yeah.
thank you.
So, how are you feeling, Virginia?
Pretty good. I still feel like I'm kind of in the middle of a storm with all these things running around my head. Like I need an anchor right now. Because it's really great to get everybody's input, because it's different from what I see. But then with all of that, I just still have more and more questions, and I'm just...
It's awesome. I think there's a pressure that you should have answers. I take on that pressure off. Are you kidding me? Big questions that souls and spirits are investigating centuries, millennia into their existence. They love it. It's like, comes to a point where you're like, please don't ever give me all the answer. I'm having too much fun here. Keep it going. So yeah, it's okay. Alicia?
Well, actually, I just remember that it says near to the end, it says that every question I ask gives birth to 100 others in reply in that chapter.
Thank you. Now you know how Afra felt. Yeah. So I came up with 2 questions from our conversation to ask Afra. 1, how can we improve sleep so we can receive the benefit as God intended it to be? Isn't that a good question to ask? I can't wait to get my answer. That's the first question. And then I'll save the second. I don't want us getting distracted with our desires. So let's ask this question to Afra. Go ahead, Alicia.
Could you just repeat it just to check
Sure.
I got it right?
How can we improve sleep so we can receive the benefit from sleep as God intended? Like, how can we receive God's gift of sleep? How can we improve? Word your question however you want, that makes it better. How can I sleep better? How can I sleep deeper? What's my blocks to having a good sleep? However that question come up for you. Yeah. And then we'll come back with the answers. Okay, who would like to share their answers? And the wording of your question as well. If your question was different, who wants to start? Michael.
I use the question the way you said it. How can I improve sleep so I can receive the benefit of sleep as God intended, or receive the gift of God's gift of sleep? And so this is just ideas that floated in for me personally. I can go into it receptively. I tend to fall into sleep exhaustedly.
Yes.
And I could go in with an intention, say, to be curious and a desire to know. Then I reflected that a second point is I'm usually not aware of what happens in my sleep state.
Yeah.
But my soul is attracting things. It's working. It's just part of me not aware of it. So I could ask for help to, number one, to go along with what my soul is experiencing, and also to help me be aware of my blocks to awareness. And my final point is number 3, go in with a feeling that I'm settling or nestling into God's arms of love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. Okay, next. Alicia.
Yeah, I asked the question in the same manner. Yeah, I felt to develop a desire, like I really want to go to sleep because it's just going to be so exciting. It's going to be an adventure. And I was just thinking, it made me giggle a little bit. Oh, I'm going to ask for surprises in my sleep.
What a good way to do it. I like it.
So I sometimes do this, sometimes not. So last night I was remembering that before I went to bed, usually I write a little, and it's part of my processing time. It's like journaling before I go to sleep. And when I wake up, I do the same. And if I wake up in the night, I do the same. But last night, I didn't do it before I went to bed. And in the middle of the night, when I thought I got up and started to do it, I got distracted and didn't do it. And even when I woke up, so I didn't do it at all. So those times when I don't do that, I don't sleep so well, for sure. So it was a reminder to keep that routine and how relevant it is for me. And it's also being aware of what I do even in the time before it's coming to sleep time.
Yeah.
Like I just got wind down.
Yeah.
Instead of winding up to something. Because sometimes I have a little I'm feeling really sleepy, and then I'm energized with something, and then I'm winding myself up instead of allowing myself to wind down. And yes, and as Michael said, it's like developing a looking forward to this process. And I'm sure that I have, what Lisa mentioned this earlier, that I have some fears around spirit attack and about engaging in addictions while I'm sleeping. But in that surprise talk that we've had, it's realizing that actually, well, that's a good thing, because actually that's just going to enhance me to realize what the truth is. Yeah, so I'm going to work on this.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Michaela?
I had a sense of, you spoke of that story of the child at home all day waiting for her father, and then her father gets home disappointed and angry, and how disappointing that is. But I had the sense of, at the end of the day, there's someone there waiting with their arms wide open, ready to bring you in and embrace you and fill up all your holes from the day. And so I got this sense of really taking the time. I feel like I've started to unravel this emotion around how not being cared for. And so to really start to connect to the truth of God's care for us, and that sleep is another aspect of God's care for us.
It's a beautiful analogy that we are the kid playing around that now gets to go home to parent and tell our parents
Yeah.
all about it
Yeah.
and kiss the boo-boo, you know. For those
Big
of us
snuggly
parents,
arms.
for those of us parents, we knew what it took to put our kids to sleep, right? It was like a whole 2-hour process. There was a ritual, there was calm down, there was all these things that had to happen because something important was coming. You really had to prepare. And there was a reason for it that I can't think of right now. I just knew that it would take time for these kids to go to sleep, so I better put in the effort. But why isn't the same true for us? For ritual. So thank you. Selena?
Yeah, I got to always remember before you go to sleep to go to sleep with some intention, you know, through your day, or maybe pick up whatever comes up, like something in your day, maybe you're unloving, what could happen in my sleep state to help give me some more truth about that, or somebody that I would really like to be able to talk to in my sleep state, you know, like a
That's really
client or
nice.
something, or just some intention, just kind of whatever was the highlight of the day or something in the day, just some intention before you go to bed.
That's really
And for me,
okay.
and also not to be scared of who I really am in my sleep state.
Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
not judge myself.
Not
'Cause that's a big one. Not judge myself, whatever I'm doing. And in the morning, to always spend time with your emotion, to reflect. Always, even if it's the same not nice emotion every day. It's okay.
Attend to yourself. Be
Yeah.
present to
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
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 I like the intentions. There's certain intentions we can set. Can I
Yeah.
get more truth about a certain issue?
Yeah.
Can I talk to so and so in my sleep state tonight?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Sometimes I just find myself, without even thinking, I go to bed before it's time, just because I want to do that for a while.
Oh,
Prepare
okay.
myself. Just do
Okay.
that process. Yeah.
I've also asked many times before I go to sleep, can I please spend the sleep with my spirit guides so that I can talk about something or learn about something? Or sometime when I'm really feeling harassed, I will actually ask, can I please spend my sleep state with my spirit guides tonight? Please. I just need that.
Yeah.
That's the company I choose to hang out with tonight. And then usually when I get up in the morning, I feel a bit better. Yeah. So that's a good one. We can come up with all kind of intentions and surprises. Can I have some surprises tonight, my sleep state? Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Judith?
Yeah, I in order to answer this, I did it the same way that you wrote it, but it was like I had to figure out what was the way God intended sleep to be, because I have trouble with sleep, and I have a lot of judgment, and I think about myself. That's a problem. So I kind of went back in time and felt like being a child, and you know that God holds you in His arms when you sleep. He has His protectors with you when you sleep, the angels.
Wow.
And then you have no burden in God's hands when you sleep.
Wow.
And I thought that was interesting, because I said, well, is that only for a happy sleep or for a sleep that you feel is bad? And it's like the same answer. It's almost like you're having attractions happen that it's in God's hands of what's happening.
Wow.
That's what I got. Yeah.
A place with no facades.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's a beautiful question. Thank you. All right. Jill, do you want to go?
Technology. I just got, don't deny it. Like if you're tired, sleep. Doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or midnight. Like, and if you're not tired, don't sleep.
Wow.
Like it's like just to be aware of your
Yeah.
of your physical body if it needs sleep or it needs rest.
Yeah. Give
Yeah,
it a gift.
simple, but yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lisa?
I really like what everybody said. I've been taking notes here. I actually was pretty resistive to getting the answer from Afrar in the beginning because what was coming to me was my daily habits that I need to change around
Wow.
caffeine. And I was like, you mean even my tea that has less caffeine that's in the morning, like at 6 in the morning, I have to stop that? And they're like, that has an impact. And the decaf coffee, that has an impact. I'm like, don't tell me this. And then also eating lighter at nighttime. I
Yeah.
need to work on that because then my body can repair itself so much better. So kind of just some really basic functional things were told to me. And then
Huge. Yeah.
the other thing is that, like Alicia mentioned, how she journals each night. I've had the tendency to kind of be watching a video or watching a TV program even, and then I'm just like, I'm tired, and then I just, I'm out. And so what they were telling me is deep breathing in bed, laying there, and connecting quietly to myself for 15 or 20 minutes before I fall off
Wow.
to sleep, if I'm able to. I might pass out because I do tend to go straight to sleep.
Okay.
But and they also said that as my fear and terror continue to reduce, so will my sleeping improve. So anyway, but those just really practical things are mainly what I was being given.
Yeah, I also got very practical answers. I got, God wished to love me. That is all. That is all that will happen in my sleep. And that was very reassuring and emotional for me. I let her be my mother. Music, bath, essential oils, singing, rituals. What will I do for a child? Talk to God, pray, reflect on the day. There were a lot of like ritual answers. These are the rituals you need to do at nighttime. And I just read murder mysteries till I'm knocked out and then I go to sleep. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm going, I can't do that. Like, you can't take that away. So I'm having a bit of a tantrum going, but you can't. But maybe I'll do all of that and then I'll go back to my book. It's like, it's a problem. So yeah, those were the answers I got. And the next question I want to ask, which we will not ask in the group, I'll tell you the question, then you can ask afterward and get your answers. The next question is, why does God love the angel of surprise? Why is the angel of surprise one of God's favorite angels, in whatever way you want to ask? So ask the question right away if you want, so that we're still in the space, and then reflect and grow from that. Okay. So thank you for today. Virginia did an awesome job. That was lovely, quite good questions. Alicia came up with really good questions. The questions like, just stick to a team. She picked surprise and sleep. Like, you just pick a team and dive in. It's a really good way to do it. And the magnetic corral is next with Selena. So we'll see you guys next week. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Mila.
Thanks, Mila.
Thanks, Virginia.